Right. So let me introduce myself. My name is Mark Ottinger. I'm the Polaris Advancement Chair and part of the GNFC Advancement Committee. And there's 3 districts in GNFC, Onondaga, Red Jacket included, and we've been running these about every 3 months, these life to Eagle sessions.
Just say got it.
And please mute yourself if you're not talking, or if you're not asking a question. So same course, we created it once, and now we're going to put it online so that anyone that wants to access it in between those 3-month seminars can do that. So this course is specifically for Life Scouts seeking the rank of Eagle Scout, and it reviews the processes and procedures to get from Life to Eagle. And we spend a lot of time talking about the Eagle Scout Service Project, since that's where most people have their questions. So we're going to look at the Eagle Scout requirements. Most of you already know them. We're looking at the Eagle Scout Service Project summary. Then we have the Eagle Scout Project Workbook, Eagle Scout application, and Eagle Scout extensions. And feel free to interrupt if you have any questions. So this is the GNFC Advancement Committee. The chair is Michael Jakowski. The professional scouter is Dick Hannibal. And we have the advancements chair. So I'm Mark Ottinger. We have our email addresses up here. If any of you want to take a shot of that and to kind of know who your advancement chair is, feel free to grab a screenshot of this. I'll wait just a few seconds here. This committee meets once a month and does a lot of things like looks at merit badge counselors. It approves Eagle Scout extensions and other advancement related topics. So your Eagle Scout rate requirements. First one is be active in your troop for at least 6 months as a Life Scout. Active being the key word here. Different troops have different definitions of active. Some troops require meetings, activities, and campouts. Others just require you to be registered and keep in contact with the Scoutmaster. So each troop is different. There's no set rule for being active, but you have to be there 6 months after Life Scout to become Eagle. As a Life Scout, demonstrate Scout spirit by living the Scout oath and law. Tell how you have done your duty to God, lived your Scout oath and law in your everyday life, and how your understanding of the Scout oath and law will guide you in life and future. This is one of the questions that will be asked in your Eagle Board review about how you're taking the Scout oath and law forward into the future. This can be signed off by Scoutmaster during the Scoutmaster conference, or possibly at a Scout meeting prior to the conference. Sometimes it's signed off by the committee. Earn a total of 21 merit badges, 11 more than required for life. These include 14 merit badges that are required. And I listed them all here. I'm not going to read them, but you notice the one in red, Citizenship and Society. This is a new one. They added this. They didn't increase the number of merit badges to 22. They kept it at 21, but they added Citizenship and Society. And I've got a couple of slides here that talks about that. As of November 1st, so not long ago, ESA introduced merit badge Citizenship and Society, which is part of the diversity, equity, and inclusion mission to promote a culture where every youth, volunteer, and employee feels a sense of belonging, to build communities where every person feels respected and valued. This became the 14th required merit badge, and it's required on July 1st, 2022. Total number of merit badges remain at 2021. So if you earn your Eagle Scout merit badge or your Eagle Scout before July 1st, 2022, you don't need this. Afterwards, you do. And let me talk about some of the specifics of that. You use the current rank requirements until June 30th. And as long as you complete all of the current Eagle Scout requirements for July 1st, you don't have to submit your application nor complete your board review prior to July 1st. As long as you have completed all your requirements by July 1st, you don't have to have this new merit badge. After that, you will have to have this. So let me pause there and ask and see if there's any questions. Anybody have any questions about that?
Sir,
Yes.
if I may ask, so there are multiple merit badges okay, so there are several merit badges that you kind of can get a replacement version of it. Like, for instance, you don't have to do, like, you can do swimming instead of hiking or cycling, correct?
Right.
Okay. Now in my case, I'm in the case where whereas I'm dealing with whereas I only have 13, whereas I only have 11 done Eagle Scout requirements. I'm working on cooking and camping. But if I did not want to do camping, I mean, like hiking or cycling for my 13th merit badge, could I decide to do Citizenship in the Society? Because it sounds like an interesting merit badge that, frankly, I'd like to try out.
So if you look at this, it's swimming or hiking or cycling. So if you choose not to do cycling or hiking, you have to get swimming.
Okay, I did swimming already, but but even when I'm done with cooking and camping, I won't quite be at 13 yet.
So you're asking, you're going to finish before July 1st, and you want to know whether you can do Citizenship in the Society instead of cooking or camping.
Nope. Okay, no, what I'm saying is that I'm on my way to finishing cooking and camping, but I still quite be at 13, I'd be at 12. So instead of doing hiking or cycling as my second version, can I do Citizenship and Society?
But you've already got swimming, so you don't need hiking or cycling.
Yes, but I have everything. Yeah, I have everything here except hiking or cycling, but that does not. I have everything here except the two that I'm working on, but that still does not add up to the required.
Take it. Do it.
13.
Then the required 11.
I guess I'm not understanding. I'm wondering, did you grab my email address earlier?
Okay, so first say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Of course, sir.
If you'd like, I'll give you my mobile phone number. You can call me and I can
Okay,
explore
so for instance, I chose life-saving over, wait, yeah, I think I did environmental science, but that still does not, okay. Yes, yeah.
Sounds like it.
Okay, in the chat, someone said what he is trying to say is, will Citizenship and Society count as an Eagle before that date?
I don't know the answer to that, but I can certainly find it out. If it could count as one of the 11 or the 13 required merit badges before that date. I don't think you can, but I'm not sure. I think it only becomes required after July 1st.
I wouldn't think it'd be hard on
All right.
the 11th.
I'm going to go on in the essence of time here, if that's okay. Wildlife Scouts serve actively in your troop for 6 months in one or more following positions of responsibility, and it lists them all here. Pause just for a minute. Eagle Scout. All Life Scout plan and develop and give leadership to others in a service project. We're going to go through this in great detail here in a few minutes. This is the main topic of this presentation. Participate in a Scoutmaster conference. We've all done these before. This Scoutmaster conference generally is the Scoutmaster is preparing you for the Eagle Scout Board of Review and some of the questions you might answer, because they're a lot different than a normal board of review. Complete your board of review. Here's something new for any of the leaders that are on this. This requirement may be met up to 24 months after the age of 18. This is new this year. It used to be within 6 months after you turned 18, you had to have your board of review. Now you have 24 months. And this is helpful, especially when scouts enter college or maybe go into the service on 18 and they're not available to do their board of review for a period of time after they turn 18. The board of review has to have no fewer than 3 and no more than 6 members that are at least 21. And this is interesting. They need not be on advancement committee or registered with the BSA. So it could be the beneficiary of your Eagle Scout project if you want. But you have to have at least 1 district representative. That would be me or Dave Talrico from Red Jacket or Sean McIntyre from Onondaga, or one of the our teams. We each have teams that will help with the Eagle Board of Reviews. Any questions there? Now, this is a little blurry because it was an image and I couldn't size it properly, but these are the steps to becoming an Eagle Scout. You got to complete all the requirements. That's just what we went through. You have to complete the Eagle Scout Service Project workbook, which you're going to go through in a few minutes. You got to fill out the Eagle Scout rank application, which we'll look at later. You have to get all the signatures required on both the Eagle Scout Project Workbook and the Eagle Scout application. You have to submit that Eagle Scout application to the council office. You have to put your Eagle Scout project information in a folder or some sort of a folder, probably a folder, just bind it. You don't have to bind it. Oops. You have to have all those materials available for your Eagle Scout Board review. We just talked about who's on the Eagle Scout Board review. you'll want to dress in your full uniform for the Eagle Scout Board review. There's reference letters required for the Eagle Scout Board of Review. Those are actually destroyed after the Eagle Scout Board of Review. You'll never get to see them. The Scout executive must sign and date that Eagle Scout application. And then the GNFC sends that application to National. So those are the steps. Let me pause there for questions.
How many signatures do you need for reference?
We'll see that when we look at the application, but 5 is the minimum. You can do 6 max. It'll tell you which type of, there's different people that can be references, like employers or neighbors or family, or your parents have to be one of them, clergy. There's different categories. And not everybody will have each one of those types of people. I mean, not all scouts are employed. Not all scouts go to church. So, I mean, there's exceptions that are made. Any other questions? Here's a good place to go. Eagle Scout resources, advancement resources. And I put the link down here. This is where you're going to want to go for, get back here to, sorry, move some things around here. If you click on that link, you'll all have access to this PowerPoint soon. And here, there's a lot of resources. Here's the rank requirements for 2020. There's not a new one for 2021. Here's the application, which we'll look at later. Here's the Eagle Scout Service Project Workbook. Here's the request for an extension. We're going to be looking at all those here in a few minutes. On the GNFC website, there's a tab called Advancement. And under it, there's this Eagle Scout process from the guide to advancement. And here's 2 links. Here's one for the forums. You can also go there. Most people don't even know this one exists. I didn't know it until I took this job. And that's the end of the requirements section of this presentation. Any questions so far? So this next part of the presentation actually is provided from BSA National, and they update it every couple of years. And a lot of it actually comes from the Guide to Advancement, Section 9, which is the Eagle Scout section of the Guide to Advancement. You see these numbers up here. These refer to sections within that National Advancement Guide, which is also on that same page that we were just looking at. But the Eagle Scout Service Project, well, is probably the most difficult part of becoming an Eagle Scout. It's probably the most rewarding portion of the Eagle Scout Project. And the Eagle Scout Service Project is supposed to be a positive experience for the scout. You're supposed to learn something from it. And a lot of scouts will say after completing their Eagle Scout is that the service project taught them the most about carrying forward into their lives and their careers than anything else that they did in scouting. Because you'll be practicing leadership skills. And you're not only leading scouts, which many of you have probably done in your roles within the troop, but you're also leading adults, which can be more difficult than leading scouts. And I hear that all the time. The most difficult thing they had was leading the adults and directing them as to what they should be doing on their Eagle Scout project. There is a lot of administrative issues. I won't be remiss if I didn't say that. There's a lot of paperwork in scouting, and there is a lot of paperwork in the Eagle Scout project. And only one Eagle Scout candidate receives credit. If it's a large project and more than one scout wants to use it as their Eagle Scout project, you have to split it into two Eagle Scout projects that are separated. Only one scout can receive credit for the project. Any questions there? What you should expect. Questioning shall be conducted in a helpful, friendly, courteous, and kind-hearted manner. A parent or another observer may be present during reviews. Project expectations are stated in requirement 5, Eagle Scout requirement 5, which we'll be looking at in detail. If requested, a written explanation must be given for any proposal rejection. And I've seen proposals rejected for different reasons. One might be a liability issue to the scouting. One might be because it's unsafe. Good example, one this week for my troop. The scout is going to be painting the ceiling in the old sanctuary of Blessed Sacrament Church, and it requires scaffolding to get to the ceiling. And the person that approves the Eagle Scout projects is questioning the safety of the scaffolding and who's going to be doing it. And there's certain requirements that he needs to make sure are satisfied to make it a safe project. In another scout who was trying to build a bridge over a creek. And we needed to know how deep the creek was, how wide it was. And that could have been rejected until we found out that the creek was dry in the summertime. It was only wet in the spring and the fall. And we could build the bridge without any problem. So there are reasons for a rejection, and those will be a written explanation would be given. Any questions there? Guidance should be readily available. If a candidate has been mistreated or the proposal was wrongfully rejected, they will be provided a method of redress. If your project is rejected by your troop, you can always come to the advancement committee, and if you think that if you've been mistreated, your first action would be to go back to whoever rejected it and say, why did you reject it, and try to remedy it. But if you can't, then, and you think your project is worthwhile and not unsafe, then you can ask for a method of redress. Not many projects are rejected. Here is requirement 5. A Life Scout, plan and develop and give leadership to others in a service project. Helpful to any religious institution, any school, or your community. The project must benefit an organization other than the Boy Scouts of America. So you can't do a project for the BSA or any one of its camps, but for pretty much any other nonprofit, you can do your Eagle Scout project. You could do an Eagle Scout project for the Girl Scouts if you wanted to. You just can't do it for the BSA. And your project must be approved by the organization benefiting from the effort, unit leader, unit committee, and the council or district before you start it. Now, this is kind of a key thing here. So a lot of scouts get an idea for a project, they want to start it right away. Well, you can't. You got to develop the project proposal, and you got to get these folks to approve it and sign it before you start the project. You're a unit leader, normally a scoutmaster, or unit committee, normally the committee chair, the beneficiary, and somebody from the district has to approve it. So don't start your project until you get the approval to start your project. And we're going to go through the project proposal in detail here in a couple of minutes. And you have to use the BSA Scout, Eagle Scout Service Project Workbook, or the one that I showed you the link to earlier that we're going to go through in detail here. Any questions? You can't start your project till after your life board review. Once your project proposal is approved, then you can start the second phase of your project workbook, which is the planning project plan. The proposal is different from the plan. The proposal is pretty simple. The plan takes a bit of planning. You have to give leadership to others. Others means at least two people besides you. Some projects are small and some are huge. Recently did a project in a bathroom in Blessed Sacrament Church, and you could only fit 3 people in there, the scout and 2 other people. You couldn't because of the size of it. It was a 8-stall bathroom, but it was just narrow. You couldn't pass, especially doing it during COVID. So we only had 3 people really work on that project. Some projects I've seen, like one of the scouts that and our troop did a cleanup at Bornhava school, and we probably had 100 people there, including Harrison Phillips, which was really cool to meet him. And councils district units can't establish requirements for the number of people led or their makeup. There used to be an unwritten rule of at least 100 hours on a Eagle Scout project, but that has changed. And now there's projects as small as 30 or 40 hours, and there's some that I've seen are a couple 100 hours. Helpful to your religious institution, school, or your community. And it doesn't have to be your local community. It could be a world community. I've seen in some of the scouting publications about world projects that have been done outside the country. So if you come up with a project that it's really anywhere that can be done. But again, it has to be a benefit other than the Boy Scouts of America. Again, your proposal must be approved before you start. And here are the 5 tests of an acceptable Eagle Scout service project. Sufficient opportunity to meet the requirement, appears to be feasible. We have had to tell some scouts your project is too big, you need to scale it back. We talked about the safety issues, they have to be addressed. Action steps for further detailing the planning are included. So again, the project proposal is the first step, the project plan is the second. It has to give you a reasonable chance to have a positive experience. We don't want you to get frustrated and not finish your project. Any questions? You can't modify the Eagle Scout project workbook, and they've locked it down now that you really can't modify it. And if it's used correctly, it really assures you of success. Now, nobody's going to reject your Eagle Scout project because of a technicality. We, as leaders, need to work with you on the technicalities. And we will have a tendency to review them before your project is final and offer suggestions to change things. Write-ups and signatures are simply supportive. Again, we want you to have a reasonable chance of success and a positive experience. Now, there's a position called the Eagle Scout Project Coach. Most troops have one. Some troops don't, but have somebody that has recently gone through the Eagle Scout process that will mentor you on the process. In the worst case, if you don't have either of those two, you would come to one of the district advancement chairs. You would either do it or find somebody that can work with you. It's not required, but recommended, because all these steps that I'm going through with you seem overwhelming, but they're not. You just have to take one step at a time, and they're not difficult. You just have to do them. It's your choice whether you want one or not. And project coaches, it's an advisory capacity. Coaches don't have authority to dictate changes or withdraw approval. They don't have to approve it, but they're going to suggest to you things that will help you get the necessary approvals. Pause there. Anybody have a question about a project coach?
Sure. I was just curious, do the Eagle Scout application or the Eagle Scout workbook, can they be done on the computer and then emailed?
They can. The only problem we have is they haven't automated the signatures. So generally what I've seen done, and we'll see it when we get to the actual Eagle Scout project workbook, everything's done online, saved as a PDF, and then sent. And for the approvals, there's a one-page signature page that is generally printed, and the 5 people that need to sign that have to do it outside of the electronic version, and then they have to scan it back in. Someday, the BSA will automate that. It's not hard to do. You can sign PDFs today. They just haven't done it yet. And the same thing with the Eagle Scout application. It has to be printed. That's only a 2-page document, where the Eagle Scout project is about 30 pages.
Now, is an Eagle Scout project proposal different from the workbook?
It's the first of 3 parts of the workbook.
Okay, so if I were to do my Eagle Scout project, I would have to fill out one section beforehand and then do the next section after I complete it. So in other words, if I wanted to, I could just do the project and then fill out the paperwork.
You have to fill out the proposal, get it approved and signed before you do the Eagle project plan. That doesn't need any signatures. And then you do the project and you fill out the third part, which is really how the project went, what went good, what went bad, what had to change. And we'll be actually looking at that in a little bit. And if anybody wants to stay on after I stop this recording, I can actually show you an Eagle Scout project workbook from one of my scouts to so you can understand that process a little better. Make sense?
So on your slide, you show coaches must be registered with the BSA. Is that an actual registered position? I mean, as an adult leader looking to be an Eagle Scout coach, is just membership in the BSA qualify as being registered, or is it a specific Eagle coach position?
There's no position code for Eagle coach. Just registered. Most times it's either an assistant scoutmaster or a committee member.
Great, thank you.
Projects themselves cannot be fundraisers. So you can't raise money for an organization. You can raise money to do your project, but you can't raise money only. You can raise money for materials in facilitating the project. Fundraising must be approved by the council unless funds are derived only from contributions by the beneficiary, the candidate, their relatives, the units, its chartered organization, or from parents or members of the unit. So this is important. Scouts are always looking to raise money for their projects. They go to the places like Value and Home Depot and Lowe's and for materials or wherever. And that's okay. But sometimes they just need cash to buy things. Well, they can only seek money from those that are listed on this, what I just read, without being approved by council. If you're going outside to the general public, there's a fundraising form that has to be filled out and approved by council. But if you're asking your unit or the chartered organization or the parents of the members of the unit for money, that's perfectly okay. You can even do it through a GoFundMe page, but you just got to limit it to people within these participants. And if you are going to raise funds outside of that group, then you have to fill out the fundraising form that's part of the Eagle Scout Service Project Workbook. Questions there? Since completed projects must be evaluated and impact to the extent of benefit to the benefiting organization. And on the leadership that you provided, there must be evidence of planning and development. There may be cases where a unit leader or beneficiary choose not to approve the project. Sometimes the project is not completed as planned. So sometimes the unit leader or the committee feels you haven't done a good enough job, or the beneficiary has changed the requirements and or didn't really clearly state what they wanted you to do, and there is a they refuse to sign the project. You know, what you need to do then is to understand why they won't approve it, see if you can correct it. But if you don't, there's a method for you to seek approval outside of the beneficiary or your unit leader. And that would be coming to me or your district advancement chair and stating your case, and then we would do an investigation. Does that make sense? Risk management, they're part of scouting activity and considered part of unit program, which means they're covered by insurance. Health and safety of those working on Eagle Scout projects need to be incorporated into project execution. This is an adult responsibility. You can use, older scouts can use power tools. Younger scouts can't. Older scouts can go up on a step ladder, but only a few steps. They can't go up on top of scaffolding. So there's, in the guide to safe scouting, it lists what you can and can't do as a scout for safety procedures. So your scout leader should know that. If they don't, they have access to it in the guide to safe scouting. I'm not going to spend any time here. All right, that ends part 2 of the presentation. Anybody have any questions before we go on and we actually look at the forms?
Sir,
Yes.
so I work with Shakespeare in Delaware Park as an intern for 2 years, and I went to them and said, hey, I got to do an Eagle Scout project. I've been in love with theater and scouting for most of my life. What can I do with that? And they said that they needed sanitation stations.
Awesome project.
Okay, good, you approve.
Yeah. Which district are you in?
Starts with an F, I'm trying to remember.
It's Polaris, Onondaga,
Polaris.
Red Jacket. Polaris. Okay,
Polaris.
Polaris is me, so that's good.
Okay, so I am thinking of sanitation stations. I don't want them to blow away, so I might be spending an extra $300 to get garbage cans to attach to them. Now, two sets of metal, one stainless steel and the other, I don't know, maybe iron. Which one, like what method would I use to burn those together?
That's not a question for me. I think that's a question that you would need to explore with the folks from Shakespeare in the Park.
Okay.
And that's a good example. We'll use that as our example here as we look at the forms, okay?
Also, are we going to be exploring how to fundraise for this, because I'm broke and this is going to cost me $1,000 at most.
So you have to go back to what I was just describing. If you're going to go just to your unit, Shakespeare in the Park, family, unit members and fundraise, you don't have to do anything other than either a GoFundMe page or somehow request funds. But if you're going to go out to the general public, then you have to fill out the fundraising application, which we'll look at in just a few minutes.
Okay, then if I were to, so Shakespeare is indeed a nonprofit, would it be incorrect according to the rules of the merit of the project to ask them to help pay for their product?
You could ask them for that.
Okay, because I did not want to sound like a jerk in an email saying, you know, hey, this is my Eagle Scout project, but
I need help.
need
Yeah.
money.
I have a quick question if I can add to that. If he went to one of the performances, could he use the audience and pass the hat there? Are they considered a beneficiary, or would they have to be a part of the organization? Would the audience be a beneficiary?
I don't think so. We would have to run that by the
Because it is a
Canterbury, who's the
public.
professional scouter. I think you would have to fill out the form and say that you're going to do that. But
Okay,
I don't think you would have any problem getting that approved. It's just a one-page form.
thank you.
Wait, the proposal is a one-page form?
No, the fundraising.
Ah,
We'll look at it in just a few minutes. All right, why is my... Okay, here we go. Now, normally I would show all of you an actually filled out form for Eagle Scout project. And I will do that after I stop the recording if anybody wants to stay on, but this is the Eagle Scout project proposal. So up here, there's a whole lot of information that I really just went through in my presentation. That down here is where it starts. So the first part of this is the project proposal. This is short, sweet, and to the point. Put your name here. You give name here, sanitation stations for Shakespeare in the Park. You have to, this probably has been the longest part of it. This first section is filling out all the names and contact information for your unit. You know, who you are, what the unit is, your unit leader, your committee chair, who the advancement coordinator is. Here's Shakespeare in the Park. Who's the contact for Shakespeare in the Park? GNFC. For Polaris, it's Tony Hempel who approves the projects, but each district has their own person, and a project coach if your troop has one. Project description and benefit. I will be building sanitation stations for Shakespeare in the Park. This will allow people to, I'm assuming, wash their hands after using the porta potty or whatever they're, something like that. That's all it has to be, a sentence or two. Include images on an additional document. Now, they used to allow you to upload images into your Eagle Scout project workbook, but that became difficult. So those are now separate. So you just have to attach them in your email that you're sending for the approval. Tell how your project will be helpful to the beneficiary. Why is it needed? Currently, there are no facilities near Shakespeare in the Park for people to wash their hands after using the porta potties. When do you begin to plan your Karen, when do you want to start your project? When do you want to finish? You're not going to be held to these dates. These are just, it's a proposal.
I'm looking, I gotta get this done by summertime.
How many people are needed to help on your project? It's just a guess as how many people you need. Are you gonna be using unit members, friends, neighbors, families, others, or all of the above? And you may
I've
want to
got-
split out whether you're using scouts and adults.
Yeah, I've got no idea how that would work because again, if we do what I want to do and, solder or somehow, attach two metals, it could, require people that are very much older.
Yep. Yeah, a scout can't use a welder or solder,
Yeah,
propane torch. It asks you what's going to be the most difficult part of leading them. A general idea of materials that you're going to need. Now, you don't have to list every last thing here. This is just a proposal. It's not a plan. You don't need quantities. You're probably going to need some lumber. You're probably going to need some nails or screws. When you say a sanitation station, I'm assuming you're thinking a sink and water, right?
incorrect. I went to Coors Corporation because they provide the materials for my school to run. And I found a stand and a pump action thing.
With water.
No, just a pump action.
What's the pump going to do?
Like the pump gives you soap.
But you're not going to have water to rinse the soap off.
They do have sinks there.
Oh, they do. Okay. Oh, okay.
They just needed a quick and easy, efficient way to get people to wash their hands due to COVID outside. And they requested 6 of them. And I think that's what's making all this expensive.
All right. So then you just need to list the materials you need. You don't need quantities. You don't need cost at this point.
Wait, what's the difference between materials and supplies?
Materials are things that become part of the finished project, such as lumber, nails, and paint. Supplies are things that you use, such as food, refreshments, gasoline, masking tape, tarps, safety item supplies, and garbage bags. So these are things that don't stay with the project. Tools. Any other needs that you might have?
Like I said, blowtorch possibly.
Yeah. There might be a tool. You could say blowtorch and say,
But I do have a soldering kit, but then again, solder is mostly to weld, like wires.
yeah. Are you going to need a permit to do this? It's in a public park. You'll have to ask that question.
Yeah, I'm writing an email right now to them to ask these type of things.
You need to throw a ballpark estimate out for material supplies. Most of the tools you'll normally be able to borrow. It's usually materials and supplies. And these don't have to be exact costs. You're just doing a ballpark at this point. Then you have project phases. You're seeking approval / permits. You need to design the sanitation stations. You need to acquire the materials. You need to recruit people to help you. You need to execute the building of the sanitation stations, and then maybe a cleanup step. Again, not very detailed. Logistics, transportation of materials, most of the time it's you and your family that does that. But you might have friends that might have a pickup truck that might help. Safety issues, this is a key one. So you need to have a designated first aid person and a first aid kit on premise when you do your project. You need to know what to do if somebody gets, seriously injured. If you're building something, if somebody gets a nasty cut, what are you going to do? Call 911 probably. You'll be in range of 911. Some projects aren't. The project I talked about earlier about the scaffolding, that was a safety issue. We had to identify that here. And it doesn't have to be long and drawn out. There's a big box here, but you just need a sentence or two. There's some action steps for the project plan, which is the next step. You're going to need to finalize the design. You're going to have to finalize the cost of the materials and finalize the steps to build it. Could be as simple as that. And then here's the signature page I was talking about. You need to sign it. Your unit leader needs to approve it. Normally it's the scoutmaster, it doesn't have to be. Unit committee needs to approve it. Normally it's the committee chair. Some troops make the candidate present it to the committee before it's approved. Here's your beneficiary approval. This is the person from Shakespeare in the Park. And then you send it to your district's person that approves the project. If you send it to the advancement chair in that district, they'll get it to him. But in your case, it's Tony Hempel. He's from Polaris, and I can provide you that information, and he would approve it. Once you've filled this out, saved it, sent it, and got approval, you can now officially start your project. So let me pause there for questions.
So you mentioned, I'm sorry, you mentioned the unit committee approval, that's optional, that's based on the troops requirement?
No, some troops require the scout to present to the unit committee before they will approve it.
Ah,
But somebody from the committee has to sign it.
gotcha. Thank you.
So again, what I just went through is the project proposal. You can see it doesn't take long to fill that out. It's just a couple of sentences in each one of those boxes, and that's all you have to do. Include a couple of pictures if you have them, or in the case of the project we were just talking about, maybe a sketch of what you're going to be building, or maybe something a design you found on the internet. So generally, and this can all be filled out online except for the signature page, which is a pain in the butt. So what we normally do, I just went through it this week. We fill out everything we just went through. We print this one page. We have everybody sign it. We scan it back in, and we send it to the council or district approval for their signature, and then they sign it and send it back to us. So that's the project proposal. Any more questions? The project plan, which is this project plan. This is a little more detailed. If the council or district rep had any comments, they could put them in here. Normally they don't. Or they'll make you change the original and send it back to them. If there's any changes, they can be listed here. Or maybe you showed a design to the beneficiary and they want to change things, you can list them here. They ask you, will the changes take more time or less time, and or if they're helpful to the beneficiary. Description of the work site. It's Delaware Park for Shakespeare in the Park. Your biggest obstacle may be transporting the materials to the work site, who knows, or unless you're going to build them off-site and then move them to Delaware Park. A little more detail on those phases we talked about. This is a detailed step-by-step list of what has to be done. So this would, describe the actual building of the stations and what would have to be done. You have to cut the wood to size. You have to screw the wood together. You have to install the pump. So it needs a little more detail. You can add some more detail to the design if you want to. Here again, it asks about permits and permissions. And this is the detail here. Which material do you need? And which supplies do you need? You're going to say item, here's an example, plywood, 3/4 inch, 4x8 BC interior grade, 3 sheets, $20 each, $60 total. Oh, that's when wood used to be cheap. And ABC hardware donation, or maybe buy at Lowe's. You have to list each item that you need for materials and each supply that you need. Here it says tarp to $4.08. It could simply just say, borrow from Troop. Questions there? Most of this could be filled out once you have your design, and you can look up the unit costs online if you don't want to go to the store to price this stuff out. That's the easiest way to do it. Now, donations, if you're going to go to the store, you have to go in person. You should be in Scout uniform. You probably should take a letter of what you're doing, so you can hand it to the manager and say, will you, donate to my project? Some will give gift cards. Some will make you fill out a form and send it to their corporate office. Each place is different. I've heard good things about Home Depot and Value donating things. Down here, you have to list all the tools that you need. If it's a power tool, you may want to list an adult, just say adult or Scout. You don't have to say a name here. I haven't seen this used much. Other needs printing, a marketing brochure, but there might be something out of the ordinary that you have to list here.
Okay. Hopefully this won't be much longer.
Then you have to total up the costs. Contribution from beneficiary. This could be Shakespeare in the Park, as we talked about. Total be raised. Again, if it's within the troop or the scouts' families. It could be a GoFundMe page if you need to. Those work pretty easily. You have to list out the different jobs that you're going to be doing. You know, one person might be sawing, one might be assembling, one might be painting, etc. What are your plans for briefing helpers? And what you'll want to do is at the start of the project is describe all the steps that you're going to go through and talk about who's going to be doing what. You as the project leader shouldn't be doing the work. You should be going from person to person, making sure they know what they're doing and making sure that they're doing it right. So you shouldn't be doing the assembling, you know, unless it's a specialty skill. You mentioned some soldering, which you may have to do because nobody else can do it. Your communication as to where they're going. You know, you're going to be sending probably an email out with directions and times and what they need to bring. Logistics, most times parents will pick them up when the project is done. It's going to transport them supplies and materials and tools. Will you assure the tools are in good condition? That's a pretty strange question.
It
You know,
just
storage.
depends on like if
Go ahead.
the tool is like beat up, like a hammer. Say if like a hammer, if the head is coming up, is about to come off the handle, then that would be a safety issue.
Issue, yeah. So you want to inspect the tools, yeah. I mean, if it's unsafe, don't use it. How many helpers we working each day? A lot of projects are multiple day projects. It's customary to provide lunch. Generally, most of the time I've seen pizza or sandwiches. In COVID this year, I saw more sandwiches than pizza because they were individually packaged. You know, are the restrooms close? Talks about where the first aid kit's going to be. Are there any hazardous chemicals? Potential hazards. I talked about our scaffolding earlier. That's going to be a potential hazard. Soldering could be a potential hazard. Communicating the hazards. Personal protective equipment or supplies needed, you know, gloves, goggles, hard hats. There'll be a safety briefing. Normally you would do it at the start of the project when people arrive. Who will be your first aid specialist? It can be an adult that just knows basic first aid. Doesn't have to be anybody, you know, officially trained as a paramedic or anything like that. You know, will emergency vehicles get there? Contingency plans in case of maybe bad weather. And comments from your project coach. Let me pause there for a minute. So you can see that's a little more detailed than the project proposal. You got to do a little work here. But not overly difficult, just a little bit of work. Any questions?
I have one quick question. How long is this meeting supposed to run for?
Till 8:30.
All right, thank you.
Here's the fundraising application. Again, this is just a form. You know, you put your name here. Shakespeare in the Park here. The name of the person you're working with. You describe how the funds will be raised. You're going to pass the hat at a Shakespeare in the Park performance. Give some dates. How much money do you need to raise? How are you going to do it? You're probably going to make an announcement at the start of the play. And you need signature of beneficiary, unit leader, and a council approval. This is the one you have to get from GNFC. Not a difficult form. You just have to fill it out. Again, one extra step in the process.
So fundraising is not actually required then.
Nope.
Okay.
Most projects don't have fundraising except internally within the troop. I mean, you know, if you're looking for paint donations for painting a room, you might normally be able to get those from a Value or Hector's or Home Depot. If not, you can ask your troop for money. So that the fundraising application is not used often. On larger projects, I've seen it used.
I have another question for money wise. Like, are you able to use your scout account that like you raise money from, or no?
That's up to your troop, but I would say most troops would approve that.
All right, thank you.
So that's part 2 of the Eagle Scout project workbook. So you execute after your plan is done, then you execute the project. This third section is the project report. It's right here. Basically, this section just talks about what went well, what didn't go well, what'd you learn. In your description, what you did. Okay, here, what went well, what was challenging, what changes are made. There's almost always changes. Leadership. This will be asked to you in your Eagle Scout Board review. You know, how did you demonstrate leadership in your project? What was the most difficult thing about being a leader? What was the most rewarding thing about being a leader? What did you learn about leadership? Because that's what the Eagle Project is supposed to
I'm just
do.
wondering if, like, after
Teach you leadership
after
and
we're
how to
done,
plan.
how to go on the computer.
That's not, I don't know what you're gonna do on the computer.
What were the significant shortages, overage materials and supplies? The number of workers, planning hours, execution hours. So you can see planning hours. Generally, your planning hours are more than you in the execution hours. You may have, 5 or 10 people working on the project for a total number of hours, but you might have 20 or 30 hours in planning and only work on the project for 10 hours. You can count
Yeah.
every email you send, every phone call you make, every store you visit, including travel time. Those are all hours towards the planning hours. Keep track of those. Keep a log. It asks about which BSA members helped, other youth, friends, family, adults, volunteers, BSA, adult volunteers, other adults, and it makes you total up your hours. And I'd say most projects average in the neighborhood of 90, 100 hours. I've seen some as low as 30 hours. I've seen some as high as 400 hours. Talks about your funding, how much you collected, how much you spent. Did you give the excess funds back to Shakespeare in the Park? Did you thank the donors? They want to see after photos. These are the other signatures required. You have to sign it saying that you did it. The beneficiary has to sign off that said you did it. And your unit leader has to sign off, say you did it. And that's it for the Eagle Scout project workbook. Any questions? I will say it takes time. There's a lot of process. There's some paper involved. A little bit of frustrations when people trying to track down people to sign it, or when people ask you to make changes. But it's very doable.
Can this get printed out
Yes,
and then sent to council?
it can. Most people don't do that because when things are changed, you start lining things off and changing them. It gets a little messy. If you do it in pencil, it's easier. I'd say 98 out of 100 I've seen are done on the computer. I just had one scout try to do it in writing. I couldn't read it. People just don't write the way they used to. So I asked them to do it electronically, and it's much better. And it also requires you then to seek all the approvals by going to the person's location as opposed to emailing it.
Okay, and then, so if you emailed it, who would you email it to?
So normally it gets emailed to the person that's going from the district that's going to approve it. Usually you can get your committee chair and the beneficiary and your scoutmaster to approve it at a meeting.
Okay,
So you don't have to go anywhere. When you're all done and you're trying to hold your Eagle Scout Board review, getting it to the members that are going to do the Eagle Board review will want to see it ahead of time. So it would either need to get scanned in or you'd have to deliver paper. But you can scan things and you can fill it out by hand and scan it in as long as your handwriting is legible enough to read.
okay.
Other questions before I hit the last two topics very quickly? Eagle Scout rank application. This is a 2-page form. It's basically your name here, contact information, some information that you can get out of Scout Book, dates of different ranks that you completed. This is the area that we need to talk about for just a minute, and that's your letters of reference. Each troop has a letter reference form that they use, or they vary. But you need one from your parents or your guardian. If you have a religious one, you should use it. If you don't, if you're not church going, maybe one of your parents can write something. I had one scout that was Native American and had a different beliefs than others, and his father had to write
I know. I'll be
religious.
The meeting's done.
Here's somebody from school, maybe a teacher, an employer if you have one. 2 other references. They can be neighbors, they can be relatives, they can be friends. Here's where you list all your merit badges and dates. You can get that all out of Scout Book. Your leadership positions. Here's your Eagle Scout project, your total number of hours, date the project finished. Now, this is a key date right here. This, as long as you have this done before your 18th birthday, your board of review can be held anytime up to 2 years after. You don't have to have this form submitted before your 18th birthday. You just have to have this signed by your 18th birthday. And really, we'd like to have also the your signature and unit approval before your 18th birthday as well. That would be good. But the finishing of the Eagle project is the key. You don't have to have your letter of reference by your 18th birthday. They can come afterwards. And then the council verifies it down here. And once you've had your Eagle Scout board review, then it's signed down here. Scout executive signs it, sends it off to national. About a month later, you get back your Eagle Scout certificate. And your unit can pick up your Eagle Scout pin and you can plan your Eagle ceremony. Questions on that?
Now, is this the board of review or is this is this just a regular Eagle Scout rank application, or are they just the same?
This has to be filled out before your board of review. Filled out and then signed by the council that this saying that this is true, then we can schedule your Eagle Scout board of review.
Okay.
So in the event of Polaris, it would be me or somebody from my team and up to 5 members from the troop. One last thing to be aware of, especially in the times we are now, is there is a process if you're approaching your 18th birthday to request an extension of time for your Eagle Scout rank. And basically you have to fill out this form. Again, it's Scouts, so there's always forms. It has to meet 3 criteria. You have to describe why you're requesting the form or the extension. Are you a member who joined or rejoined after a period of inactivity and need time to complete all your requirements before turning 18? Through no fault of or choice of your scout, an unforeseen circumstance or life-changing event with severe consequences has come to exist that now precludes completion before a deadline. Got one yesterday. Scout's house burned down. All his Eagle Scout project documentation was in the house. Family is homeless. He submitted a form to extend it. That's perfectly good reason. You know, family goes into the hospital or a national disaster like COVID are good reasons. And these are things beyond a scout's control and could not have been anticipated or planned for. So you can request up to 6 months extension. And generally that comes to our advancement team. I think we've rejected 1 in the last 2 years. With COVID, we've had quite a lot of them. So I know I went a few minutes over here, but let me open it up to any other questions that people might have.
Is this PowerPoint available anywhere?
Not yet, but it will be shortly. I'm going to stop the recording now.